Hear that? That means it's time for another fountain pen shootout. And today we'll be having a talk about 3 pens. Now, you may have seen that my setup is still rotating a bit. There's a window right there. I try to get the lighting as optimally as possible, not to bring out my beauty, but to make sure the camera focuses well. And it seems to have some issues when a lot of light falls in. So I'm hoping that this will solve stuff a bit. So what pens are we talking about? We're talking about a couple of cousins, I would say. The Lamy Safari, the Lamy Vista, and the Lamy All-Star. I get a lot of questions about these 3 pens. Now the thing is, I only own one, a Safari. I had to borrow the other 2. A Vista and an All-Star. What's the difference? Well, I only have a full review of this pen on my channel, so I'll do a quick rundown of these 2. The Safari and the Vista are pretty much the same pen, the Safari and the Vista. The only difference is that the Vista is a demonstrator, so as you can see it's clear. You can look at the inside of the pen, whereas with the Safari they come in a bunch of colors, but none of them are see-through. Only the Vista is see-through, as far as I know. The All-Star is a different pen altogether, although it has the same elements. I mean, if you look at the 2 or 3, you'll see they have the same design elements, but the All-Star is made of aluminum or aluminium, depending on which side of the pond you're on. So it's a different material, but the pen body, the design, is the same. Okay, so a quick rundown of the pens. I've talked about the Safari. There's a full-blown review of that on my channel, so check it out if you want to see that. Because they all have the same features, I'll go through the 2 pens quickly. I'll talk a bit about the differences. Then I'll show you how to take them apart. One, actually, because you all take them apart exactly the same way, and I'll do a writing sample. Okay, so let's start with the Vista. The Vista is see-through. I like this cross in the cap. When I'm not sure why you can see that. Let me do this focusing trick again. There's a cross there. When I did the review of the Safari, I wasn't sure what it was for, and then someone said, well, this indicates the pen type. The fountain pen has this sort of plus sign, the ballpoint has another one, and the rollerball has yet another design. So you can see, I mean, clearly this one is see-through, but you cannot see the nib. You could see the converter. But if you would have something like this, there is no way of seeing on the outside whether the tip in here is fountain pen nib or a rollerball nib, a tip, or whatever. So you can just, if you have all 3 types, you can just check the top and you can see. That's pretty cool, I think. Okay, we have the clip. The clip is nice. It's fairly springy. I like with this clear version. Let me zoom in a bit again, if possible. I like this metal bit right there, the metal inner cap. That looks quite cool, I think. It even has some ribs in there, so it's textured. You can't feel that clearly because it's inside the cap, but it looks nice. Okay, then you have the barrel. The barrel has these very annoying holes. I suppose those holes are supposed to be an ink window. So right now you can't really see that because this pen is full of ink, but you can see the converter or the cartridge through that. Now, of course, with a demonstrator, that's kind of pointless because you can see it anyway, but that's what they are for. Why do I find them annoying? Well, it would be very cool to turn this into an eyedropper. And I guess there's a video of someone online, I suppose if you get the rollerball version, they don't have these holes. You just have to put some type of glue or stuff in the vent holes at the bottom, then you have an eyedropper. But for me, that's too much of a bother, actually. The grip section is not for everyone. The grip section on this, the Vista is see-through. You can see the feed in there right now is full of ink, so you mainly see a lot of dark ink. But when it's dry, it looks quite cool. So then we have the why. I mean, it's not for everyone because it has these facets that you grip. Not everyone likes that. For me, it's never been a real issue, but some people really hate it. Okay, then you have the barrel, flat on 2 sides, round on 2 sides. I guess you can sort of see that from the profile of the end of the barrel. You see flat and rounded stuff. Okay. That's pretty much all there's to it. You have a converter in there. I'll show you that later when I take them apart. It takes converter cartridges. That's all there's to it. Now the All-Star, it's pretty much the same model. Again, you have that cross right there. You have the same clip. You have the same barrel shape. You have that ink window again. The section here, I think, is a little, yeah, it's made of a little darker plastic. It's just, I'm not sure how well you can see that because there's dark ink in there, but believe me, the All-Star has a somewhat darker plastic section. It's still see-through, which is quite cool. Okay, of course it's made of aluminum, and that means it's a little thicker. This pen is a little, it's a very small difference, but you definitely see it when you hold them. I should probably hold up this one, the Safari. When you hold them up side by side, I'm not sure whether you can actually see it, but it is quite apparent when when you're actually holding them. This is a bit broader, a bit thicker. Now, as to weight, you may think that the All-Star is a much heavier pen. The reason I'm reaching around here is I'm grabbing a scale, because it's made of metal, right? And the other ones are made of plastic. Well, aluminum isn't such a heavy metal, and I'm just going to weigh them. This is not the most accurate scale in the world. It's just a simple old analog letter scale. The All-Star comes in at, I would say, about 25 grams. The Safari comes in at about 20 grams. So the difference, let's just do the Vista too for fun of it. That seems to be just a little over 20 grams. The difference is very small. It's hardly noticeable. You will feel a very slight difference in weight, but don't expect a very heavy pen just because this is made of aluminum. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so that's a brief rundown of the three pens. The nibs can be exchanged very easily. So instead of just throwing on a medium nib on all three of these pens, I thought I'd just show you three different nibs. So I have a fine nib, a 1.5 millimeter metallic, and a broad nib. If I would put medium nibs on these three pens, they would write exactly the same. I think it would be pointless to do a Shootout then, because I mean they're the exact same nibs. They share a nib, so you can interchange those. So I thought I'd make a little exotic and use different nibs. So that's interesting, perhaps. Which one do I like best? Well, I only have a Safari. These two, I mean, I like how the Vista looks cool. I like how the All-Star is feels a little bit more durable, because it's it's so nice and metal-y, metallic-ish, and not plasticky. But in the end, it doesn't really matter a whole lot to me. I think they're all nice pens. They're nice knockabout pens. They're not extremely expensive. They work well. They've got pretty smooth nibs, so I like them. And what do I not like about them? Well, that sort of shaped section with those facets, it's just not for everyone. I completely understand that. As I said, I've never had any issues with it, but if you're going to buy this, it's probably a good idea to try this pen out in a store before you actually purchase it online, so that you know whether you really like that grip section. And these are very, very common pens, so you shouldn't have much problems locating them in some shop. I think that's all there's to it. All I can tell you about the pens. I'll show you how to take them apart for maintenance, and I'll do a writing sample. So I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye. Okay, so Safari, let me align the cap there, Vista and All-Star. That's the only metal pen in here. I'll show you how to take them apart. Now that's very simple. With all three pens it's exactly the same. So you unscrew the barrel, you take the converter out, and you're left with the section. Now these converter, you got a couple of Lamy converter types. Some of these have, I'm not sure why you can see that, but they have little things, protrusions there, which actually slide into notches on the converter, you see, so that's a very secure system. This one has a thread right there, so you can screw it in. You can take these converters apart. This is a metal ring,
you just grab that tightly and you slide it off, and then you can just remove the piston, and if you keep unscrewing that, the whole piston will just pop out like that. This is a nice bit to apply some silicone grease to every once in a while if you don't think the action of your converter is particularly smooth anymore. And you slide that back on. Now with this converter it's the same thing. You just pull off, slide off the metal ring. Careful you don't squeeze down on this too hard, because you can bend it, then it won't fit anymore. And then in principle you should be able to pull out the piston, and that's giving me some trouble there, but there we go. If you do this, then at some point, you saw this was a very tight fit, at some point you may ruin the seal of the converter, and then I mean not this seal, but the actual seal part where it goes into the ink reservoir, and then it will not draw up ink as well as it used to. So I would only take this apart if it's absolutely necessary. For example, if there is ink behind the piston seal here, you cannot clean that, etc., then you can do that. Okay, so that's two converters and how to take them apart. I think I have a similar converter. Yeah, it's that converter that I have in this pen, so that should be fine. Okay, so we have those. You can take them apart. Now what about the section? Well, one thing you can do with the section is one of the very easy things to do with these Lamy pens is just take the nib off. A very easy way to do it. This is a little grubby, but this is just a bit of Scotch tape. You put it on there. You just slide off the nib like that. It's no problem whatsoever. You can also do that by hand, in principle, but especially the first time you do it, it may be a little bit difficult. This is a broad nib. You can also get extra fine, fine, medium. You get 1.1, 1.5, and 1.9 italics. So you have a broad range of options, and they're all exactly the same. So you can switch those around. That's one of the reasons I've put a, I think, yes, 1.5mm italic on the All-Star and a fine on the Safari, because I know a lot of you guys like fine nibs, so I thought I'd put one on there. And then this is a broad nib. Now, the final thing you can do, that you may want to do at some point if you really want to clean the pen very well after extended use or whatever, is take the feed out. Now, unfortunately, getting the feed out is not that easy. What you do is you need to grab it. You can just pull it out. Do not twist this one, because there is a notch, a ridge in there that will actually keep the feed in place. So if you rotate it, you may snap it and break it in half. One thing you can do is take something like a rubber band. Sometimes that helps. If you get that on there. Of course, a broader rubber band would be useful, but I didn't have one lying around. It may give you better grip. This is completely useless. Something that I often do is just take something like a cloth that will give you a bit more grip. I enjoy that this is very tight, because this is quite close to the experience you're likely to have. There we go. Just be patient, don't get irritated, just pull it out straight. I don't think I can show you that notch. Maybe I can show it on the, a little bit better on the Vista. See, I've just pulled out the feed here. See that notch? There is a ridge on the feed right there, the bottom of the feed, and it's going to be very difficult to show you. I don't think this is going to work out, but there are two ridges inside the feed that ridge slides into. So if you're assembling the pen again, and this doesn't feel, like the feed doesn't feel like it's going in smoothly, you're doing something wrong, and it may actually get stuck. So be very careful. You make sure that ridge goes into the notch, and then you see it's a very smooth motion. In other ways, I can't get it in that far without actually starting to push harder. So it should be very smooth, and it clicks in place. And you slide the nib on there. Make sure you do it well, not crooked, and you're done. So that's really all there is to it. Very easy pens to disassemble. Once you've gotten the feed out for the first time, it should be easier. Actually, it's a two-part feed. You see that? There's a little black plastic thing that goes on there. You can clean that too. There's likely to be some ink in there. I've cleaned these beforehand, so it should just be water. The very narrow bayonet thing goes, if you slide it back in, goes on there first, in that first, so like that. See that? Just slides in place, and well, that's all there's to it. So put that back in, click, click, click. There we go. Right, well then I'll just ink these up. What should I use today? B.R.E Royal Blue. It's just a converter, very simple, nothing fancy. So I'll grab some paper and then we'll do a writing sample. Okay, so let's start with, this is the Vista. This is a fine nib. Gives a bit of feedback, but actually it's not nearly as bad as I expected it would be. Okay, then the Safari. This is a broad nib. The paper is Rhodia dot pad, by the way. A nice wet line. Pen performs well. A little bit of feedback, but it's not that pronounced. I think this is a very smooth nib. And then we have the All-Star. This, by the way, is a 1.5 millimeter italic. Oops, sorry. So again, please, if you remember that if you're going to buy an All-Star, it's not going to write like this, right? It's the 1.5 italic that makes it write like this. The italic gives you that nice line variation that the other two nibs do not have. But it's very easy to switch out these nibs, as I've shown you. So here you get almost no line variation, and the same goes for the fine. Of course, these are round nibs, so you wouldn't expect this type of line variation anyway. Okay, well, as to when we're talking about line variation, they are steel nibs. They're not the springiest in the world, but as you can see, you can squeeze out a bit of line variation under pressure. See, this pen doesn't like it. Don't tell me it's out of ink already. Apparently it's not. Sorry. Blotter to the rescue! There we go. This is getting uglier by the second. What the heck is going on? Why doesn't this... fellow right. Funny, I've never had that with the Safari broad nib. Something seems to be going on here. Let me just draw up some more ink. I don't know what exactly is going on, but it's odd. There we go. Dry feed. Doesn't matter. Okay, and then finally the All-Star. Now the problem is this looks like line variation, but it's because of the shape of the nib. I'm applying no pressure here. If I do apply pressure, you see that the nib can open up a bit. Okay, so well, wetness. Yeah, this is a very nice wet nib pen combination. I like that a lot. This, if it doesn't fail, it should be very wet. I really don't know what happened just then. I've never had that. As you can see, this is pretty wet. This is really wet. Didn't give that enough time to dry, but you know, even then it's just a very wet pen. Of course, being a fine, this is likely to be a little less wet, but still pretty nice. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, see, it's still pretty wet. So there you have it. 3 pens. The Vista see-through, made of plastic. The Safari, not see-through, also made of plastic. And the All-Star, made of aluminum. It looks a little bit bigger. I always got the feeling it is bigger. Slightly bigger diameter, I get the feeling, but when it comes to the grip section, of course, that's plastic, so that shouldn't really make a difference. So there you have it. 3 pens. 3 affordable pens. I hope the comparison was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.